G'day, welcome back everyone to the Athlete's Mind podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest joining us. Long time in the works for this one. Talon and I are very excited for this. So, ladies and gentlemen, Xavier Ellis, former AFL player for Hawthorn and the West Coast Eagles, and currently very involved in the media. A lot of you would have seen him around. So, Xavier, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
No, going well. Thanks for having me. You're in the Triple M studio, similar to the studios you guys record out of, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty similar.
Ours is a bit of a downgrade, but yeah.
Welcome to Triple M, of course. And yeah, you're right. It's been a little bit of time in the making, but unfortunately for you guys, I've got two young kids that I seem to pick up. Oh, I do pick up every day. So just waiting through a text message at the moment. The kids are back to school today. Or as your kids never go to school anymore. Yeah. It's a Monday and you're starting school on a Tuesday from school holidays. That's just absolute bullshit. So now I've got a kid stuck with a nanny who's in his school uniform with no school to go to.
Oh,
anyway.
No, but it is a pleasure to be in the Triple M studios. Pretty cool. So thank you for that. Now, we start all of our podcast episodes the same with asking our athletes, especially, how they actually got into their sport. So for you, where did the journey sort of start for you getting into footy?
Yeah, I grew up in a town of about 200 people. So small town in country Victoria called Lake Tyers Beach. The neighbouring town was Lakes Entrance, which had the basketball court, the footy ground and the cricket field too. So just when you're born into a small town, I don't know if you guys know many country boys, but you don't really have too many options. You just have to play everything that's available. So just did every sport possible. Hated athletics, but, you'd still do athletics and all that sort of stuff. But, got into footy through Auskick, Vic Kick back in the day, with all the schoolmates. And once we did that, then I saw something the other day, funnily enough, about when my oldest can do Auskick, and it's next year. But you do Auskick now from the age of 5 to, I don't know, 12 or 10 or whatever. It's a long time. Whereas when we were going through, it was like Vic kick until you'd learn to kick, and then you had to go play under 13s, under 14s, under 15s, because there wasn't enough numbers to fill in the team. So there was no chance of getting a bit stale doing Vic kick back then, because you're only there for a couple of minutes and then you're off playing the big time against the 13, 14, 15-year-olds.
Yeah, right.
So was footy the main focus? You did mention briefly that you did other sports, but like what other sports were you also good at, or was it just footy that you really focused on?
No, it was the tiny town I said, we had a pretty talented group of kids. So we were playing against a basketball team, for example, was as good as any sort of town in country Victoria, and we only had a tiny population. We were just lucky that the group we had was pretty gifted. So cricket played a lot of that. Basketball, played a lot of basketball. Grew up literally, so the ocean was, mum and dad's house was where that road is virtually. So a lot of stuff in the ocean, nippers and surf life saving and all that sort of stuff. I'm as fat as a house now and I couldn't swim, so it doesn't really equate to much these days. But it's just every sport used to do it.
Just overall a very sporty kid.
Yeah, you were. And it's like they had the footy in their hands all the time. Only the last couple of weeks, one of my boys has started to pay a little bit of an interest to sport and footy, and he loves it. But he's 4. I reckon at the age of 2, I was walking around home with cricket bats and golf sticks and whatnot in my hand. So it's just everything we had to do to fill the numbers to start with. And you had to do it probably underage, top age, bottom age, bottom age, just to fill the numbers. But that's how I got into all the sports.
Yeah, and what about like junior clubs you sort of played for? Like going back quite a while, can you remember any memorable moments from your junior days, whether that's winning any flags or just good times with your mates playing?
Yeah, one that I laugh at, and I spoke about the numbers being so thin in the country. I was maybe 10 playing under 13s, and mum would never let me play under 15s, so I was too young for that. And one day we were so short on numbers in the under 15s, mum watched our under 13 game and then went home. And when she drove out the gates, I whacked the under 15 jumper on and then kicked a couple of goals. The best part was when you're in the country newspaper used to have to put your name in as the goal kicker. Yeah. So we couldn't put Xavier Ellis in because mum would have seen it, but Matthew Lloyd was my favourite player, or my favourite forward growing up. So in the paper, it was Xavier Lloyd was kicking goals. So mum worked that out pretty quickly that there was no Xavier Lloyds floating around town. I got my ass kicked for that. But No, that was always good fun. We seemed to win premierships a bit, which was good. Yeah, in terms of memories, I used to love knocking off school, getting on the back of a mate's mongoose bike. He'd dink me to, because I used to live out of town, go back to his place, then go into the main town where the corner store was. I was going to say steal a shitload of lollies. We'd get a whole lot of like those little pineapples and all that sort of stuff. Then walk around to footy training and sit there all afternoon until do training. And then Dad or Mum would pick you up after, or Dad would coach a lot of the time. Just those memories I absolutely loved and cherish them now. Footy, it was so much better in terms of enjoyment. And I had a bit of a rough run with injuries and stuff, so that obviously played a part. But schoolboy footy was by far the best days of my footballing life.
100%. Like, even with me and Talon, like, we play like school footy at our school and we love it.
How
like,
are Trinity going?
Yeah, we're a lot better this year.
Yeah, we're going well.
I went last year to Christchurch playing fields to watch one game.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think? Last year or the year before? I think you lost by 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're much better now. I think we're like second on the ladder.
Okay.
We're up
No,
now.
in fairness, there were a lot of year 10s playing
Yeah.
the day that I watched. So it was undersized, underaged.
Yeah, so we have improved, but I mean, that now that you mentioned school footy, you actually did play for, it was Melbourne Grammar, is that correct? Yeah,
Yep.
so, and you were co-captain at the time, and I want to ask you, like, looking back at that, how did that level of footy compare to the other levels of footy that you played? Was it a high standard? And even like comparing it to something like the PSA that we have over in Perth, what did you sort of find with that?
Well, coming through, so Chris Judd had just come out of the APS. So APS is the same as you guys, but it's over in... Chris Judd had just come out. Luke Ball had just come out. Joe Watson had just come out. There were so many stars that were just starting to come out of the APS system. So it was good footy. He said I was co-captain. So my other sparring partner was Tom Hawkins. So he was he was the full forward. I got him drafted. I'd get it out of the middle, hit it on his chest, and then he'd kick a goal. But so Tommy Hawkins was our other captain there. But my first year of school footy, so first year of first school footy, we were year 10, and we played against Caulfield Grammar. I don't know if you remember Andrew Walker.
Yeah,
Played at
names-
Carlton. Yeah. He debuted against West Coast at Optus Park or whatever, Optus Park I think it was, whatever their Carlton field is there. He had 28 or 29 on debut. Nearly took mark of the century. It was unbelievable. It was the number 2 draft pick the year before. And then they had the bye the week after. So Andrew Walker went from having 28 on debut in an AFL game to playing on a year 10 kid at school. I still remember it was at Melbourne Grammar. They had Andrew McQualter playing, who's now the coach of Richmond. Their midfield was Walker, McQualter, and a guy called Steph Garuba, I think his name was, who also got drafted. So you got a lot of talented players to play against. And it was good fun. I used to probably talk a little bit too much shit for a young kid. It was good fun. And as I said, school days are the best days. Under 18, so I used to, as you were saying off air before, a couple of mates play school footy in East Perth or Waffle Colts or whatever. So we used to do that as well, play school and then occasionally go back to the TAC Cup. And our midfield in the TAC Cup team, we won the flag, was Trent West, who won a premiership as a ruckman at Geelong. Yep. Scott Pendlebury, who's just broken the record for the all-time. Dale Thomas was the other midfielder. I was a midfielder. Our full forward got drafted. Our centre-half forward got drafted. Our winger got drafted. There was like 14 or 13 of us that got drafted.
Wow.
So, and funnily enough, we won that grand final against Dandenong, who had Nathan Jones playing, Travis Tuck, maybe a couple of others, and we won by maybe 10 goals or whatever. But the prelim, we won by kicking a goal virtually on the siren. So what could have been, Jay Nagle, his father was a famous Essendon player. Jay got drafted to Essendon as well. He kicked a goal from 50 to get us into the grand final, and once we got in the grand final, we knew it was probably going to be 10 goals or something. But, that was a pretty good team.
Yeah.
So you managed to play several games for the Hawthorn VFL affiliated. How was that initial jump from into playing into that side from like Melbourne Grammar? And
so I only played there when I was still at school. So my first year being drafted, I stayed in the boarding house because I was 17 when I got drafted. So I still had year 12 to do.
Yeah.
So I didn't play much. I broke my ankle early that year, so I don't really remember playing those games. I remember playing down in Tassie in one of them, but it was just a bit of a mess. My year 12 year slipped on a sprinkler cover that was broken at school and broke my ankle. So what was going to be a good year of fun ended up being a bit of a pain in the backside. So played a few games there. As I said, I remember a lot of footy stuff, but I don't really remember that just because it was a messy year. I think I had sore groins as well. It was a bit of a show. So, but playing against men was always hard. Especially I was part of the changing my timeline. The change of going one-on-one in football, which was pretty easy if you read the play okay, to zones and stuff, which made it a lot harder to get easy for defenders to get the chippity chip. But for the midfielders and stuff to try and work out zones and stuff, it just sort of started implementing then. So got drafted, and then you had to learn how to kick properly because I know when you read the scouting reports of kids that say they're good kicks or whatever these days, they're not a good kick until you learn how to kick in zones because you can't zone in under 18 football, do the Clarko cluster or all that sort of stuff. You can't tag. You can't. So learning to kick through a zone where people can come from 360 degrees is bloody hard. So that took a bit of time to learn how to do that. And you used to think you've hit a target, and really you're just setting your mate up with a hospital pass with one over the back. So no, it was good to learn. Footy's always about learning, and I certainly had a lot of that to do early days.
Yeah, right. And I mean, talking on to your early AFL career, it was 2005 when you got drafted. It was number 3 overall.
Yeah.
How was that initial feeling of actually getting drafted, which, a lot of kids' lifelong dream? What was your feeling when you heard that news?
It was now you see the big shows on the Gold Coast. They do all the Lair and Flair, and it's a massive event. It was kind of a big event, I suppose. It was at Etihad. And the top 10 or top 8 draft picks were there, so I had a reasonable idea I was going to get drafted because I was sitting in the front row. It would have been embarrassing if I was left off the list. But as I said, I was year 11 at school. Didn't really know what was going on, to be honest with you. Our Vic Country under-18 side was hopeless. We lost every game by 40 points. And again, like some of the names we had, Pendlebury, Selwood, Boak, Sean Higgins, Sean Grigg, we couldn't win a game though. And again, it's one of those things when you live in the country, you're not close to it. Like, you don't know any AFL players. You didn't go to school with any AFL players. So I didn't really know anything until the first year the year before being drafted. Jared Roughhead was a Gippsland boy who I knew really well. So sort of had him to idolise and see that things were reachable, I guess, if you applied yourself. But getting drafted, it was great. It was good fun. Had a party that night. Spewed off the balcony at mum and dad's. But no, it was good. It was good fun.
Yeah, good way to celebrate. What was your personal goal going into the Hawthorn side? Because a lot of young guys, especially now, like to set themselves goals, whether that's earning the respect of their players or finding a good spot in the team.
What was to get a game? Just want to get a game. To be honest with you. So I said to school in my year 12 year, and as I mentioned before, I broke my ankle in the end anyway, that I was only going to play, and now it starts to ring a bell, those VFL games. I was just going to play school football. School football was going to be my focus. Forget about AFL. Hawthorn weren't great, and towards the back end of that year, Clarko wanted to play me in the AFL. And school said, no, you made a commitment to school. And I was also thinking match payments too. There's a bit of cash to be earned there too. So I was a little bit flat actually leaving school because I really wanted to play as you do. And Clarko was like, we're going to play you. But school were like, no, mate, you've got the commitment here. So then that was fair. I made the commitment. But at the time, you'd be like, just let me play. Like, surely it's a good thing for the school I'm studying sciences on Friday and playing AFL on the MCG on Saturday. Surely that's a good thing. But in hindsight, it's probably more of a life lesson than anything else about just you make a commitment, stick to it. So, and that was why I played those VFL games for Hawthorn, was to play against men to then play AFL, but it just never happened. So, it was great. You just want to play AFL.
Yeah.
But I still remember draft night getting messages from Shane Crawford, Sam Mitchell, Luke Hodge, and you're like, they've got my phone number. That's sick. Like, they don't text me anymore. They're grumpy old buggers these days. But it's just meeting people you idolise.
Yeah, right.
And then bloody Lance Franklin comes along.
Yeah.
Like, how's that?
Yeah. So you've mentioned the big names like that you played with: Franklin, Sam Mitchell, Rioli. Just what was the overall experience in just playing with those guys like?
So if Lance Franklin, for example, some players don't get the opportunity to play with generational players, is the way I describe it. Like, you go through, and I'll pick Melbourne because now they've got Petrarca and Max Gawn, so they certainly do. But during my time, like, they just didn't have a player that you probably, if I said name a player from the mid-2000s, you'd be like, oh, shit, was he playing? Was he playing? Whereas I was so lucky, like Lance Franklin, generational, Sam Mitchell of Brownlow, Luke Hodge, Norm Smith coming out his backside. Cyril Rioli revolutionised, the small forward pressure, whatnot. So I used to get a bit nervous, not around Cyril because he was a Scotch boy, year below me in school, we were good friends. But I used to look at Lance Franklin, Luke Hodge and that, and I'd be running out in the field going like, oh my God, I'm playing, this is sick.
You're
like,
playing with him,
occasionally you'd go out to a bar or a nightclub or whatever, and you're like,
hanging out
there with
Frank.
me. This is cool. And that's where I got my nickname from Triple M, the nightclub specialist. James Brayshaw used to call me the nightclub specialist because he reckons I'd go to the nightclubs with Lance and those sort of hot shots and just see whether like I could get some attention from the females by hanging around Lance. So that's why I was a specialist. Is how I played the nightclub around those celebrities. So the nightclub specialist.
Jokes. Oh my God. And going into your first season, correct me if I'm wrong with this, but you were awarded the best first year player for the club.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I wasn't up against much, to be honest. I think. I think I might have played 13 games my first year or 14 games. I think the second best was 1 or something. So it wasn't a strong field at the time. I was pretty lucky to have won it, but I think I was the only one that could have won it virtually.
Yeah, right. Well, because my question for you was like, were you expecting to get that award?
Oh, well, I would have been robbed if they gave it to a bloke who spent the year in the VFL. I would have thought that was a bit unlucky. But it is a bit of a silly award, I suppose. Best first year player means nothing in the end because you get drafted. You get a number associated to you when you get drafted, and then you enter a football club and no one gives 2 hoots about what number you're drafted. Like, not once is it mentioned again. And it's a bit like your first year. Like, if you play great, but we want to know what you're going to do in 3, 4, 5 years because not many first-year players, and Nick Dacos has ruined it for everyone. Yeah. So's Ashcroft a little bit. Like, they come in and star.
Yeah.
Whereas that's 1% of players, less than 1%. The first year or two is just hard. Like, you're in the gym, you're sore, you've played a game of VFL football and had 6 touches, and you think you're never going to make it. And then, like Luke Bruce, I use an example, just kicked 500 goals. He played in the reserves.
Yeah.
Like the 22s. Couldn't even get a game in the actual VFL. So, the best first year award, it's nice to go, well, you win that.
Yeah.
But, like, your first year is really a low bar for a lot of people.
Yeah, fair enough. One of your biggest feats in your AFL career I can imagine anyway, would be the grand finals you played in, especially winning the 2008 grand final. Explain that experience and the feeling of winning at such an early point in your career. Yeah,
interesting, disappointing. No, never disappointing. That's not the right word. I didn't appreciate it being the age of 20. I thought grand finals were a piece of cake. Like, I'll do this again next year. Yeah. So we Geelong were the team to beat. They were outstanding. We had Lance Franklin who kicked 100. Jared Ruffhead had an underrated year that year too. I only kicked 85 goals himself. So, we played Geelong in the granny. We're underdogs. It was hot. I remember how hot it was. It was like 26 or something. Well, it felt like it was 36. But Geelong were the team to beat, but we were fitter than them, and we were the fittest team in the comp that year.
Yeah.
Like, we used to do running sessions on a Saturday morning. And the team rule used to be like, once you'd given it everything, never bend over, never put your arms on your hips, never crouch over and show any pain or hands on your head. So you used to run and your heart would just be bursting and your lungs would be exploding. You used to have to just walk off and grit your teeth. And then another team used to turn up to that park, the exact same park, the hour after us. So one would already done the running session. We're there an hour before them. And they used to always hobble and hunch over and tie their shoelaces up at the end of every cone because they were puffed. And it was such a silly thing, and it meant absolutely nothing that we did that. But, geez, we prided ourselves on being the toughest. And I think Jeff Kennett said the mentally toughest. But we certainly were the fittest and could gut run as hard as anyone in the competition. I reckon on a hot day, that's what sort of separated us a little bit to Geelong. They had opportunities early, missed them. We had a lot of injuries too. Trent Crowe got injured before half-time. He didn't come back on. Clinton Young got injured at half-time. He didn't come back on. So we're 2 down on the bench with no subs or anything like that. So some people say Geelong should have won it, but I think we did a pretty good job undermanned and ran away with it in the end, thanks to me big mate Stewie Jew.
Not Just for a second, going back, you said Buddy. How was Buddy kicking 100 in the season? How was that experience?
Yeah, it was good, but I ran to the bench.
Oh, you on the
Oh.
Yeah, so I sat next to Mick Malthouse's daughter. It's Christy Malthouse. She used to do the Channel 10 boundary. And and she was pregnant, and we just had to sit there. And I was like, this is not what it was meant to be. I'd rather be in the crowd, not playing, and run out there. But I still remember, and one of the great calls of all time is, I think it was Stephen Quartermain when he kicked that goal. And the talk all week was, crowds won't enter the field, but if they do, Lance, you get ushered downstairs. Players mingle in the middle or whatever. I think Stephen Quartermain said something like "People power has spoken," as like everyone just rushed the field. It was amazing. Like just saying, it was so good watching Lance kick 1,000. It was the 1,000 was bigger than Bud's 100 because it was a piss take. The 1,000, mate, people were almost on the mark when he kicked it. It was crazy.
They were running on before.
Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. Yeah, and the Sydney Swans players ended up outside the stadium. It was crazy. But the 100 for Buddy, and you don't realise at the time, and we fought hard not to let Favola kick 100 that night too. He got stranded on 99, and we went pretty hard to stop that. I think we sort of want to make it Lance's night. Yeah,
yeah, fair enough. And going back, like winning that grand final, did you have that sort of feeling of accomplishment early on? Like, because winning a grand final early on in your career, you can sometimes become a little bit complacent.
Yeah, I think I did come a little bit complacent. I had a pretty wretched run with leg injury, but I was pretty good in that grand final as well, the back end of that year. Like I thought footy was easy. Like, how easy is this? I'm 20.
You had like 28 disposals.
Yeah, running around, getting a kick. But even like, I think around 18, 19 that year, we played Geelong and Collingwood on Friday nights. I had nearly 30 in both them.
Yeah.
It was good fun. It was a bit of, well, there was no pressure. We were good. If I was bad, then Lance would kick 8 and would win anyway. So, like, who cares? There's just no pressure. It was bloody good fun. But I certainly underappreciated how hard they were. So 2013, this morning I got invited to the 2013 premiership reunion with Hawthorn. I was injured that year, and there's no way in the world I'd rather go to a funeral than go to the reunion I didn't play in, because you realise those opportunities just disappear. Lost 2012, we should have probably won. I think we had 30 more inside 50s or 25 more inside 50s that day, and we lost. Injured 13, and then 2015 turned up the MCG with West Coast against Hawthorn, and you think you're going to win that, and we got absolutely smashed. So it was like, shit, lucky we won one. And that's what I say is, undoubtedly I was a disappointment as a pick 3 in the draft. Didn't reach the heights of a pick 3. But there's one thing I can hang my hat on, and it was on grand final day when I was 20. I played pretty well on like Jimmy Bartell, Joel Corey, Joel Selwood. Had Ablett for a little bit, and then I was pretty quick to get off him. Chance Bateman was tagging him and got cut. And I remember getting the message, X, can you keep an eye on Ablett? Yeah, tape that head up quick, because I am not staying on Ablett for long. I think we kept Ablett to like 36 touches and thought we did a good job. He was so good. So yeah, that's the one thing is you just realise you're a part of the history now, and to play okay. And I talk a little bit of nonsense most of the time. Like I talk garbage, and the amount of shit I've spoken about that grand final, I've bamboozled so many people about how I played. Like I jokingly have said I should have won the Norm Smith. Now people think I won the Norm Smith, or did you win it? Didn't. What happened in the Norm? Poor old Luke Hodge was outstanding, and I've just muddied that game up for everyone. They've got no idea what happened.
Oh my god, that's jokes. What would you say was like different in the other 2 grand finals that you played in with like not winning those?
I hurt my leg in 2012. Funny enough, came off the bench in that one and thought it was my day. Walked on, scored was 0-0. Kicked the first goal of the game. I was like, oh, here we go. I'm gonna kick 4 and win a Norm Smith. And I subbed off at half time with a leg problem. And we just dominated and just couldn't get the job done. It was pretty simple. Like, as I said, I think we had 20, 25 more inside 50s. That usually equates to a win. I think we won the clearances by maybe 15 to 20 as well. But credit to Sydney, that's just what they do. They just hang around for long enough, and I don't think anyone doesn't like the Sydney Swans. I think everyone thinks the way they've built that club's pretty special. So, and that was just a game that, if we played 10 times, I'm sure we would have won more than 5. But the one that mattered, we don't get 10 goes at it.
So it was 2013. You signed with the Eagles. With your time at the club, how did you compare it to Hawthorn? Obviously, you had Adam Simpson, joined at the time being a new coach. So how do you compare that to like Hawthorn?
Yeah, I've turned up to West Coast.
Yeah.
I was overweight and I needed to lose a fair bit of weight, which I did with swimming. I don't know if you boys can swim, but gee whiz, swimming
it's
just
good,
strips
yeah.
you.
It's killer.
So I came over with Simo, not with Simo. Simo was at Hawthorn. I was
Yeah.
lucky enough to get the opportunity at West Coast. The main difference was between the two clubs, West Coast were as fit as I've ever seen a footy club,
Mm.
and Hawthorn were as skilled as I've ever seen a footy club. And somewhere along the way, one side was getting it right, and one side wasn't getting it right. And no point in being fit if you don't have the footy was probably the theory Hawthorn had. So they had those beautiful left foot kicks.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be the fittest team, as I said, will fit in 08.
Yeah.
As we got older, we just got more experience with how to use a football.
Yeah.
So West Coast quickly swung into action in terms of a little bit less running.
Yeah.
I remember turning up and doing like 10 400s at the end of a session. I wouldn't have done 10 400s in a year at Hawthorn. Like, that's how hard it was. It was bloody hard running. But then Simo just thought, oh, no, we need to get this team more skilled. Because I remember my first training session at McGillivray, and windy there, and there was they sort of train on one of those open ovals. 40s were going everywhere, like everywhere. It's ducking and weaving and getting hit on the head by stray pills. So, they quickly swung into action and became a highly skilled side in 2018. You could see, 2015 we made the grand final, and then 2018 winning the grand final. You could tell they changed their game style to be more skill-based.
Yeah, what a grand final that was.
18 was mad, wasn't it?
It was,
very
yeah.
good,
So good to, I mean, can't say the same where the Eagles are now, but yeah, looking back at
You got to
2018.
enjoy the good times.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll tell you what, I'm sure some Kilda fans would be pretty keen to have a grand final. Like, that's the part I get a little bit annoyed by is, don't get me wrong, West Coast are going horrible and as bad as we've seen. But think about, like, poor old Bulldogs who went forever without winning 1-1 in 2016. St Kilda haven't won one since 66. Fremantle have never won one. Port Adelaide won one in 04. Adelaide haven't won one in the 2000s. Like, they're bloody hard to win.
Yeah.
West Coast have had 92, 94, 05, 06 grand finals, 15 grand final, 18 victory. I mean, there's been a little bit of gravy associated with the football club. You're allowed to have a little bit of a blip.
Well, if anything, as Eagles supporters, I reckon we've been spoiled in the previous years of how good we've been.
1,000%. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it was due to, a bit of a rebuild, but yeah. We'll move on to some quick fire questions. It's sort of something new that we've introduced on the podcast. Okay. We just got 5 quick questions.
Who came up with the idea of quick fire questions?
It was a bit of both. I sort of mentioned it, and then Talon said that he saw it on like this other podcast, Brain Ethan. I don't know.
Yeah, Free or something.
Yeah, kind of. They interview Colts upcoming players.
Oh yes, yep.
Yeah, good blokes they are. But yeah. So the first.
So you've stolen it off them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sure.
We'll pay credit where it's due, but yeah. First one we've got for you is, what was your nickname you got called playing for both West Coast and Hawthorn? Were they different at either club?
So the nicknames, if you go on Wikipedia, it says the Big Pepsi. I've never been called the Big Pepsi in my life. I don't know where that's come from. And often I'll do something like this and I go, so Big Pepsi? I'm like, I've never been called the Big Pepsi ever. So anyway, nicknames, it's pretty easy with Xavier, like XX, man.
Yeah.
I ran with a bit of Swaggy at some stage at West Coast. Swaggy P, I don't know if you know Swaggy P. He's a basketball over in America. So I thought I was Swaggy X. So I still get Swaggy a little bit, which is a piss take because I'm fat, pale, wear glasses. Not a cool thing about me, but Swaggy gets a reasonable run from some people.
Yeah. All right. The second one we've got is, who was your closest mate at Hawthorn and West Coast when you played?
Closest mate, it's interesting. Like, there's probably a group of mates. Like Cameron Brown, I've got his 40th coming up in the next couple of weeks. So like Brownie was a mentor to me. And Cameron Brown, he made a rule like I'm not allowed to drink until he drinks, not allowed to go out if he's not out. Like he really laid the law down when I was young, and I needed that. And
it's good.
Win a flag, and you think, gee whiz, I'm not sure if that would have happened if Brownie hadn't done that. Drafted with Birchall, Liam Shields, all those sort of guys. I was talking to Luke Bruce the other day. Not really have the best mate, but West Coast was a different sort of relationships at West Coast because we're all a bit older. Started getting married, started having kids, started kids going to school, all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, I speak to Shuey a lot. Jack Redden, had a few beers with Nick on Friday night. So, JK, they're all rippers. Like it's funny. Like they're just good people.
So you just keep in contact with like a lot of them.
Well, you try to. You just get too old. And one bit of advice: try and stay close with your mates. It's easy to stay at home, and school's good because you're forced to catch up with everyone.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, gee, once you have kids and stuff, it just comes bloody hard.
Just changes. Yeah. All right. Third one we've got for you is pineapple on pizza. Yes or no?
100%. And if you go to Mozzarella in Wembley, the mapled pineapple is delicious.
Yeah, Monsterella's good. I've eaten there. What was your first ever job?
First ever job, I worked in a bakery for like a week. Didn't work a great deal as a kid because boarding school and stuff. You're so far from home. Bakery for a week or two, and then I was drafted in year 11. So
straight in there.
So probably a bakery boy or a footballer was the first job. I need to come up with a better story than that because I've got a lot of mates who are farmers and stuff, and they were shearing sheep when they were 12, and fencing and all that, and I've got nothing. Like I sold a couple of meat pies for a week and then moved on. Yeah, I haven't got a lot.
Yeah, that's all right. And last one we've got for you is, what was your favourite subject in school?
Favourite subject? I was pretty good at maths, and then I didn't do it in year 12, which I don't know, just stupidly and probably arrogantly had a difficulty with a teacher, which you just it's often, I don't know. You guys attend a nice school. Yeah. If there's an issue, it's probably not the teacher a lot of the time. The student probably can pull their finger out of their backside, and maybe a bit of self-reflection. It could help at times. So maths, I'm a numbers person, so maths was probably it. PE, the usual sort of stuff for people who enjoy sport. But I was hopeless at like design tech and wood and all. I was hopeless at any of that. History and English probably didn't have the work ethic.
Yeah.
I'd go maths. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say the same about me.
What are you nailing?
Well, me and Talon do like uni ready. So Talon, you don't even do a maths.
No, I don't do a
He doesn't do a maths.
What's uni ready?
It's basically, it gets you like the minimum ATAR you need to get into uni.
Right. Okay.
So instead of going down like an ATAR route, you just do uni ready.
Yes,
Right.
That's just like another pathway.
Okay. And what's uni ready to go study what?
Yeah. So it gives you the minimum. So any course has the minimum. So, I mean, for me, I'd probably go something to do with media, like communications. Not sure about talent.
Not sure,
but nowadays there's just so many different pathways to get into uni. So I guess it's good. I mean, like
the old ATAR score, it was VCE for me back in the day. And you used to stress about it and think this is a bit scary. And my sister, I think, got 99. My brother got about 99. My little sister got about 99.
Jeez.
And I certainly didn't get anywhere near 99. I started to think maybe I got a different dad or something. I can't work it out. I can't work out where my brains went.
No, that's like me, like, because my sister got like a 98, and then I'm doing uni ready. It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, I know. And you got to explain. Well, no, it's important. It's just a different route you go down. It's just a different angle. Yeah, exactly. No, one bit of advice. No, as I said about the draft picks, and once you get drafted, you think, pick 3. How cool is this? And I said, you had a footy club. No one cares. Yeah. No one could give 2 hoots about your ATAR score once you leave. And if you don't get your ATAR score to get into the course you want, people with determination and a will find a way to get to where they want to go. So I wouldn't be stressing too much about the ATAR if you're doing your best.
Yeah, fair enough. It's good advice. Now, Talon and I want to ask you a bit about your media career. Obviously, that's where you are now, and after your AFL career, heavily involved. Yeah. But before we go into that, I just want to sort of ask you, someone actually sent in a question last night for you, and it was, what do you actually miss most about playing in the AFL?
I don't miss playing because if I wasn't injured, I was always injured late. And so you just think if I was still on the list, I was going to be injured, and that was shit. If I could, I'd miss having coffees and lunches with the guys. Like sitting around and, I say flippantly, not a worry in the world. Everyone's got a few worries, but like a nice cold can of Coke Zero and a roll in the sun, and just talking nonsense. I miss that.
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, that's probably the good stuff, because a lot of people you'd think say playing, but like just spending time with your mates would just
you lose that. And you guys, as I mentioned briefly before, once you get older and older, mates just get further and further away.
Yeah. Now, since your retirement in the AFL, obviously being heavily involved in the media, things like Weekend Breakfast on 92.9, Hardball Gets podcast, list goes on. But I want to sort of ask you, how did you actually initially get into the media side of the business? And not even in just sport, but just media in general.
by fluke, absolute chance. So two guys who are now pretty heavily in the media themselves, Will and Woody. You might see there on radio station, but then I think Woody's been on Celebrity Get Me Out of Here, or the Jungle Show. They've also been on Celebrity Apprentice. So they were here in Perth. They went to Scotch College in Melbourne, our rival school. Didn't know them, but knew them loosely. And there was a party at Luke Shuey and Danny Orlando, now married Shuey, at their house. And I was sort of kicking the can doing something else at the time. I'd only been out of footy for a few months. And I think this is what happened, is there was a flamingo in the pool. And Danny was like, Shuey was like, no one's allowed in the pool, no one's allowed in the pool. And I sort of surfed the flamingo across the pool. Like, technically I wasn't in it. And she wasn't happy. And at the time, the sister-in-law used to run the radio station here.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how I got into it, I think. I was the West Coast player here, but I was injured all the time. And then Will and Woody left. So they went over back to Melbourne, and it just timings, everything, just got lucky. And don't worry, I didn't wait for their bodies to get cold. I was like, see you boys, bang, straight in. So no, Will and Woody are people I look up to in the media world, and they were good enough to help me out, and good enough to leave too. Left for more money and a bigger opportunity, but made way for me, which is good.
Yeah, nice.
Did you ever see yourself going down the media route just for a career when you were younger?
No. I love footy, and I'd love to one day get back into the footy. I don't know how, or I don't know where. I'd love list management, and I love that sort of stuff.
Would you mind coaching?
I wouldn't mind it, but I just like lists and I like recruitment. I swear list managers don't watch footy. Swear. How would Brodie Grundy be at Melbourne? Well, you're short of a ruckman, are you? No, let's go get Brodie Grundy. Oh, Rory Lobb. Oh, no, let's get Rory Lobb to play centre forward. Not like we've got 4 good key position forwards. Yeah, they don't watch it. I'm telling you.
Questionable choices.
They don't watch it. They just go, oh, that'll do.
Yeah. When you first actually started your media side as a career, did you feel a bit like unsure of it, and did you slowly?
I still feel unsure of it.
You like sort of slowly adapted.
No, it's autopilot now. I'm trying to find where my boss is. We're in the studio, so I don't know if they can hear out there, but not a lot of preparation. I just get in and
just chat,
get it done, and get going. And I've usually got 3 or 4 things to do after shows, so meetings or whatever, and then in the car, and I'll go over to 7 West today, and then I'll dart across the road to someone else's house to do a podcast there, and it turns out I've got a kid that's not at school, so I've got to sort him out. Poor little bugger, he's going to be stuck with me for the day.
Well, I mean, you just mentioned your kid. Like, I actually was going to bring up that, you're much of a family man. You talk about your kids a lot on the podcast, say some very funny stories about them. Are your kids, like, aware of the stories you tell about them?
No, not at all. No, they all they want to do is listen to, and I made the mistake as being a dad, and I'm very lucky as a dad because I spend more time than most dads I know with the kids just through my work hours. I do the pickups every day. I do dinners every night. I do the baths. And then by that stage, my wife's home. And that's when I wipe my hands clean and say, hi, I'm done. Take them. I don't want to see them. I don't want to hear from them. So I am really lucky in that way. But all they want to do in the car, and I make up, funnily enough, one of the songs is about to come on here in the radio studio, Thunder by Imagine Dragons. They love Spider-Man and Batman and superheroes, and to listen to songs, I just make up stories within songs that I'm listening to. So it'd be like, I think, so for example, Imagine Dragons, Thunder, feel the thunder. He's like, what's that about? What's that about? And I'll be like, well, this is when the Spider-Man comes into town, into the city, and he flies in from New York, and the storms are going, and there's lightning because Spider-Man's in town. And I just make up these stories to every song. But it gets a little bit hard when he refers to a story I've made up from 10 weeks ago about, and I'm like, mate, I don't know what song that was. But anyway, Imagine Dragons and that sort of stuff. So we just sit and listen to music in the car more than anything. But every song's got a superhero sort of connotation to it, which is completely made up. Anyway, it's good fun.
It's very funny. I mean, one funny moment was actually an exchange between Joel Selwood and your son, Ted Ellis, which I'm sure you remember. Who was it that sort of initiated that? Was it Joel responding to Ted, or?
I can't remember. It went for a year. Like there's quite a few videos I couldn't put in. just for content warning and language and whatnot. But so Ted likes the Giants,
Yeah.
and he now I was saying one of the kids likes a bit of sport now, but he never used to. So the Giants was more the song. It's a big sound of the West of the town. He used to love that song. He went to the grand final in 19. He was, I don't know, 8 months old or something at the time. So no, doesn't know what footy is. He's never been to a game of footy, and he wouldn't know who Joel Selwood was. But then he started to see Joel on TV. But he thought Cats he just supported the Cats, didn't know he was one of the all-time greats. Then they started going back and forth over a year and a half or whatever, and Joel just openly smashed the Giants. And then Ted would openly smash Geelong. So that was great fun. So now he's starting to watch a little bit more footy, and so Tommy Hawkins came over to our joint when they were in town against Freo.
Yeah.
And the boys don't appreciate Tom Hawkins. They think he's a giant. Like, they think he's genuinely not human. Like he's got something wrong with him where he's a giant. Yeah. So they got no idea what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, that exchange with Joel Selwood was funny.
Yeah.
I was actually watching.
No, it is good. And I wasn't going to. I didn't realise how big that video was going to be. It went massive because literally I just went through the text chain between Joel and myself and went to videos, and the only videos that are saved on my phone between him and I are back and forth in order as it was. So I just chucked him in an app, and it was done in a minute. I'd done a video, and it just went. Yeah, it's crazy, and I'm glad I did it because it made me look at it and Joel's such a good person.
Yeah,
good memories of Joel being a good man, and at the time he hadn't had kids, wanted to have kids, was struggling to have kids. And he was still investing in my kids. Ripping lad. And I'm glad I did that video.
Yeah. And I'm sure Ted will look back at that one day as well.
He still won't know who he is unless he's a Superman or a Batman or buys him a present that's a gun or something. He won't know or care.
He's a fan of the superheroes. Now, we thought we'd take this time to ask you a bit about current AFL talks that are going on. Probably one of the biggest ones we lightly touched on before is the Eagles this year, their injury drought. What do you sort of think the Eagles can do moving forward to sort of improve their status and get to a better position than they are now?
I think you need to speak to some senior players about opportunities elsewhere. Coming from Hawthorn, Jordan Lewis finished his career somewhere else. Luke Hodge finished his career somewhere else. Sam Mitchell finished his career somewhere else. Grant Birchall finished his career somewhere else. Yeah. They averaged 300 games at Hawthorn. So it's not the days now are gone of oh no, you've been moved on. Like it's about creating opportunities. So. I use Elliot Yeo, for example. I think Elliot Yeo's a superstar of the competition. I look at Adelaide Crows on the weekend who got rolled by the Giants and go, if he's on a lot of money, Yoey, so maybe West Coast go, we'll pay half of it. When the things get tough at Adelaide, you can put Jordan Dawson back into defence to steady that up. You've still got a big body midfielder in Yoey. Pick 15, and I think it's a win for both sides. And Yoey now continues his career. He needs a run of injury-free footy, and he's playing Adelaide Oval, big club Adelaide. Yeah. West Coast get a draft pick out of it, a good draft pick, a late first rounder or whatever. I just think they need to be open to moving some people on. But the only thing is the value now is probably gone on a lot of players. Like there's no real. I think Yoey's probably the only one with first round sort of quality. Oscar Allen would, obviously. In America, they'd just trade Oscar Allen.
Yeah.
They'd go give us 2 first-round picks for Oscar Allen. We'll have pick 1, 5, 6, and just rebuild that way really quickly. We don't have that mindset in Australia.
Yeah, that's true. And, I mean, for you obviously played under Adam Simpson, and with your experience, how was he as a coach for you? Because you can tell he's really trying. He gets around the young lads from what I can see. And, people saying that people always go and blame the coach first, which I don't really agree with. But what are your thoughts on him as a coach?
I love Simo. Just he was so level-headed. He's gone a bit greyer, I'll say that. But he was never, when we were good at West Coast and we're in a close game or, and say I kicked the ball and had it turned over and a goal went over your head, you never saw him throw a water bottle, swear, grab the phone and scream down it. Like, he just level-headed, and I think that's the way he played. Like he played 300-odd games. But he just did it by doing the basic things really well, being a competitor. And he didn't expect Battler me to be good. He just expected me to play my role. And that's what I thought was great. And he had the mindset and the brain to move West Coast to, as I mentioned earlier, the skill base as opposed to fitness base, implement some stuff he learned from Hawthorn along the way. Coaching is one of those things. Everyone's got an expiry date. It's just when it happens. He's got 2 years left on a contract. I think he deserves a right as a premiership coach, 2-time grand final coach, to see what he can do with Harley Reid and whatnot. Because also, say you do get rid of Simo, who's going to want to coach West Coast? They could go 0-24 next year. Do you know what I mean? Like they're really bad.
Yeah.
So no first-time coach is going to go, oh, this is how I'm going to cut my teeth. So you may as well give Simo the chance to really develop it and start again.
Yeah.
Who is someone that you just see the potential from the Eagles, like one of the young guys like Jimby, Elijah?
I like Long.
Yeah.
And
He's
not
good.
as a not as a star. Those other players might be better in the long run, but every team needs. And I say about the Giants, when the Giants had 25 A graders on their list and couldn't win a grand final, they needed more Noah Long. And I used John Noble as an example at Collingwood on the weekend when I was at the pub. He just does what he does. He doesn't want to be best on, and he doesn't play a bad game. He's good and bad. He's a 7.5 out of 10 every single week. I reckon Noah Long can do that, and I reckon he's going to be a energetic, maybe a little bit of Papley to it. Get the crowd going. So I'm a Noah Long man, and it's not a high draft pick. It was someone that they found. He's only small. He's eager. He's tough. So I'm a Long.
Yeah, he'll be good. He goes in hard at the ball, and like you've seen glimpses that he's got potential.
I am. I'm not convinced on the young kids yet either at West Coast though. That's a slight issue. Not an issue. We haven't seen enough from him. So Campbell Chesser, first round draft pick last year. Are you convinced? Jimby started well, but he tackled a lot, which was because he was standing behind the stoppages. Yeah. Probably going to be a good player, but you need 12 more months into him, and then you can start to go, I see. Close your eyes and picture a passage of play from Jimby. You probably can't remember too much. Next year, I reckon you're going to remember breaking 2 tackles, lacing someone out inside 50, taking a contested mark, kicking a goal. Like, next year's the year, because it's hard to come in and playing teams that are getting smoked like they were. So,
every week,
they need to start the off season. I would be thinking that maybe the footy trips and stuff are on hold, and I'd be getting better at footy. But the kids are there, and I'd trade Harley Reid's pick and bring in as many kids as you possibly can.
Yeah, it's a heavily discussed topic, the Harley Reid, whether Eagles are going to trade him or keep him. But I don't know. It's like it depends what direction Eagles want to take, because Harley Reid.
I don't think there's been a more inflated number 1 draft pick ever. You're going to get a ridiculous bag for him. If it was the past where they go, number 1's pretty similar to number 2 and 3, and whatever. But if you can get picks 3 and 6 for Harley Reid and maybe something else, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
That's
Because also, and I say that there's only been since 1999 2 first round draft picks, 2 number 1 draft picks win premierships, and one's Luke Hodge and one's Tom Boyd, who went to the Bulldogs. So there's no correlation between being picked number 1 and winning flags. That's my view, is the more talent that comes in, the more chance you are.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, look at it that way.
But he's probably going to win a Brownlow or 2, and you might enjoy watching that too. So it's a tough one.
Fair enough. Well, we'll move on to some mental questions now. Obviously, the athlete's mind, something that we talk heavily about. We just like to dive deep into athletes' mind, sort of what they think, and especially when you used to play in the AFL, what sort of went on in your head. The first thing we asked, well, obviously, previous to being in the AFL, with all the training you did at such a high level, did you ever feel like mentally burnt out? Obviously, physically would be bad, but
I remember we were coming back from an Adelaide game. Grant Birchall and I were 19 or 18 or whatever it was. 19 must have been. And we looked at each other, and that's when we realised footy was a job. Like, it's a job.
Tough, yeah.
You've been booed, you were sore, you're beaten, you played a bad game, someone was potting you in the media. The mental burnout, it happens probably too quickly, which now I'm not saying poor footballers by any stretch of the imagination, but I wouldn't have social media if I was a new draftee. I just wouldn't bother with it. I think you get drafted and you think, oh, goodness me, I've got 10,000 likes on my photo.
Yeah.
Like, who gives a shit? What's that equate to?
Yeah.
Unless it's money, I don't want it. Like, so maybe 10 players in Melbourne have, Nick Dacos commercially would be worth a lot of money, in terms of sponsorships and stuff. Petrarca with Red Bull. But you can name 15 players who've got those deals.
Yeah.
So the other 500, you don't need your social media because it only opens up to, or have it on private if you want to have it. It only opens up to, some tough things that are said to you. And if you're battling as it is, you probably don't need the drunk who's lost a sports bet multi to, smack you on the way through as well. I don't know. It is mentally tough.
Yeah, especially with social media becoming bigger as it is now.
Yeah, and I just don't think it needs to be bigger for some of these players. Like, if I had my time again, I'd just say, I don't need it.
Yeah.
What do you need it for?
Yeah.
How would you mentally prepare for your games? Like, what would you any routines that you would do or anything?
Pretty standard stuff. I mean, I used to have a bit of a dicky leg. So day before the game, I used to do captain's run.
Yeah.
I remember Clarko saying to me one day, "You've done enough in the captain's run when you feel one drop of sweat hit your ass." So from your back, whenever I felt one bit of sweat down my back, I'd be like, "Oh, I've done enough today. I'm done." So no, nothing was really that set in stone. Because it is, time differences in WA and South Australia and Brisbane at times. Your routine can change. And Sam Mitchell speaks about, he was a real stiff for routine, like to the minute virtually. Then he had kids and the routine just went out the door and he was like, that was the best thing that ever happened to him. He was to lose a routine and to be flexible. If you're driving to the ground in Melbourne on a Friday night and there's a crash and it's going to take an hour and a half and not the 30 minutes you'd anticipated, what can you do? You can't do anything about it. So what's the point of sitting there whinging and stressing? And so I reckon, if you prepare yourself the right way, Monday to Friday, train well, eat well, sleep well. You put yourself in the best position. Yeah. What happens in the day of the game or the game leading in, you can't control that. So what's the point of stressing about it?
So you just do everything that's in your control.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about dealing with a loss? How do you because some players deal with it like kind of bad or...
We didn't smile and laugh like you see these days sometimes. I don't think Clarko was big on that. I think dealing with losses, when you were young, it was fine, if that made sense, because often you were an underdog and it was all about how you competed. Yeah. And we were always pretty good in that sense, so we never really got in strife for that. Losses are fine. It's just if you can learn from them, I suppose.
Yeah. Try not to dwell on it.
Yeah, like I watched Richmond yesterday in the West Coast game. They should have put that game to bed. Yeah. They kicked 1 goal 6, and then it was a bit leery at times, and didn't give the handball. I reckon if that was us, Clarko would absolutely slaughter us for that, and we still won by 10 goals or 50 points or whatever it was. It was just winning and losing the right way was usually dictated on how you deal with it.
Yeah, fair enough. And now the last mental question we have for you is, what was your key motivation when you were playing AFL? Is there something that was always in the back of your mind when things were hard, when things were tough for you, that you would think to and sort of kept you pushing?
Yeah, I wasn't good at this, and if I had my time again, I'd be better at it for sure. I got into the stage where I wanted to try and prove people wrong, and it's not a good way to. It's not a good way to play. Like, it's much better. I always say, well, when you want to prove someone right who believed in you or whatever. Yeah. So no, I was always stressed about trying to play at a level, and I never got to that level. So I was just always worried about letting people down, and that played on my mind a lot. It felt like I let Hawthorn down. West Coast not so much because I've never paid that well. I'm a bit of a believer in. Your performance equals what you paid. Yeah, so on the 15th of every month, if you're earning 900,000 and you're playing like a donkey, like that's probably where the criticism should be directed. Not Tom Cole, who's on 150,000 in his third year and playing in the back pocket and only had 12 touches. Like he's playing at the level he's supposed to. So I didn't really West Coast, but at Hawthorn I had a few expectations on me. That probably weighed me down a little bit. Early days, just not being able to perform. Yeah. Just with the body, and then you miss out for a while, and then in comes someone over the top of you, drafted a year later or 2 years later, and then you're chasing them. So probably just trying to prove people right, not trying to prove people wrong.
Yeah, and like sort of prove yourself right as well, I guess. Yeah, it's a good way to go about things. I will just ask you one more thing, and that's would you have any advice for up and coming young players trying to take their game to the next level?
Social media would be one of them. Anyway, I love social media. I'm on it all the time. I wouldn't weigh into too many of it. But I just think always don't have fun. If you're not having fun, don't do it. I mentioned school days are your best days of your life earlier. School footy should be the best footy days of your life too. I think too many kids are worried about that are trying to get drafted. They see a couple of old blokes sitting on a hill at a footy ground with a clipboard who are recruiters, and they play an ordinary game. They think the world's going to end.
Yeah.
I'll give you a hot tip. They're not watching you that closely that they're going to mark every single second you've been on the field. If you've had a bad game, it's not the end of the world. If you've had a good game as well, make sure you enjoy it, and just be level-headed. Don't be a smug little so-and-so, because you see some of the videos getting around these days, and there's a couple of smug little kids out there, and it can catch up quickly. So I just love, like, Nick Dacos is a humble, and he's as good as we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just be humble and always ask questions, learn, and once you've done that, make sure you have fun.
Yeah, very good advice. Well, that about wraps it up.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Xavier, for joining
thanks
us.
for coming into to Triple M. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having us. It is an awesome experience being in the Triple M studios. So, yeah, we appreciate it, and wish you all the best with your media career as well, moving forward. Everyone listening, just a quick message from myself and Talon. Make sure you go and subscribe on YouTube as well as Spotify, because we got the podcast running on both platforms at the moment. And go and follow us on the socials, Instagram, TikTok, all that other stuff, so you don't miss any updates for future episodes. But yeah, other than that, we'll catch you guys in the next episode of The Athlete's Mind. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, to The Athlete's Mind. Make sure you go and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and the rest of our socials, so you don't miss any future episodes and updates here on the channel. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.